Greetings, adventurers. Good to see you again. We trust you're doing fantastic. Today we're going to be showing you how we paint 4 new mud pod houses from our Act 4 mini expansion. Here we have 2 pod houses, and the one on the left is a free download from our website. That means you can follow along. So go download it. The link is in the description. Print it, and let's do this. After the prints are done, we can clean up any webbing left behind by the printer nozzle. We can do this quickly by flame striking the pieces. Double check your work as you're doing it, and before you know it, everything will be all good to go. And don't forget to flame strike the bottom of your piece as well. Pod house number 5 has 2 pod roof versions, with and without the tree. These are the paintbrushes we're going to be using. We like to use a small brush for target painting, a larger brush for dry brushing in smaller areas, and an even larger brush for dry brushing bigger areas. Oh yeah, and don't forget the paper towels. Now let's look at the colors we're going to use. Base wood, school bus, stucco, stone edge, cardboard, moss green, deep water green, base gray, shallow water green, and earthstone. Let's grab the paint palette and our first color, which is base gray. We're going to focus our attention on the rocks and stones. We want to give our rocks some dimension, so for the first layer, we're going to give them some spots. What we're going to do is dab away sporadically until it looks like this. Notice we leave the black PLA showing, and we're going to want to point out, don't completely cover up the black PLA. Leave some of that showing. Okay, that looks good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and leave these rocks alone, and we'll come back to them when all the other colors are in place. Let's move on to Earthstone Paint. With the biggest brush, we're going to dry brush the entire piece. That is the pod domes, the floors, and the bases. And it's okay if you hit the plants on the rocks, just a little. That's looking good. Let's get the bottom sides of the pod. Also, if your pod has a tree trunk, lightly go over that as well too. Now that that's done, let's grab the deep water green and a clean big brush. Here we want to dry brush the grassy bottom, the bushes, and light touches across the rocks. Now let's pull out the shallow water green and a clean brush. For this color, we want our brush to be very dry. Go ahead and hit all the shrubbery, the grass areas, and lightly on the rocks. It's okay to be a little sloppy. Now we're going to paint the pod domes and the bases. For this, we're going to use school bus mixed with cardboard and a small brush. Let's mix 50-50 of both colors. From here, we want to target paint the high points of the vines, which will give us a high contrast look. The earthstone creates a nice shadow, and the creases of the pieces that show the black PLA, they give us a nice range of dimension when all this is combined. We also want to paint the lower pod house vines on the base. Next, let's take some of that 50-50 mixture and dry brush the floor of the pods. For us, we found there was 3 ways to paint the mud pod houses. A high contrast way, which you see here, and a fast way, which uses the dry brush method, and a third way, which blends both. Overall, we ended up painting 3 high contrast, 2 high contrast with blending, and 3 dry brush versions. This gave us a really nice variation to the colony. Okay, let's do the next one with the dry brush method. We're going to emphasize the doorways, windows, top vent by layering the paint. It's going to get thicker here. Yeah, more luster. This is going to add those higher highlights to those spots. All right, that's looking really good. Let's grab one of these high contrast pieces and let's go ahead and blend it with some dry brushing across this piece right here. That's looking really good. 3 different ways. Looks fantastic. The creativity and the choice is yours. Next, we're going to target paint the eggs. So let's grab some stone edge dry brush color, stucco, and a small brush. We'll be using the stucco first for the eggs on the pods. So let's do that now. And it's already starting to come together, isn't it? If you make a mistake like that, just clean off your brush and use the brush to put water directly onto the air. Then use the brush to scrub away the air and use the brush to suck up the water. This will suck up the color right out of that spot. It'll be perfect. All right, that's looking pretty good. So now let's grab some Stone Edge dry brush and highlight all of our eggs. Just a small dot on the top of the stucco. It's super easy. All right, this next step is for the pod dome that has the tree growing out of the pod. The Pod House 05 to be specific. Grab that bottle of basswood and a dry brush. We found it works best if you hold the tree on the pod and then paint both of them at the same time. So let's do that now. Let's wet dry brush the tree and go around each side. The side that is closest to the dome, well, that's the hardest part to paint. Not to worry though, because this is the shaded side of the tree, so it's gonna look just fine. All right, now let's add that highlight section. What we're gonna do is take some of this stucco and mix it with the basswood brown, and probably something like a 50-50 will work, or even lighter. This is just for highlights. So let's go ahead and grab our brush and dry brush the tree and the base of the tree on the pod house at the same time. Next up is moss green. So let's pour that out, and we'll be using a medium or large brush. We'll be dry brushing the highlights of the bushes, the shrubbery, and around the base of the pod house in general. Do a couple layers of dry brushing, or use a wet dry brush, because in this area, it's going to be applied a bit heavier. What we're trying to do here is make these leaves look like they're full of life. With the same color, we're going to go ahead and take a big brush and lightly dry brush over the top of the pods, around the windows, the doorways, and the top vent. Lastly, with this color, let us also add a highlight to the grassy ground cover by randomly dry brushing, or just, tap the grass with the brush. What we're looking for is a little bit of diversity on the grass area. Okay, that should do it for this pod and the grassy areas. Well, we're almost done with this painting. All we need to do is finish up the rocks. So let's grab some Stone Edge and base gray and a small brush for target painting. We're going to pour the base gray next to the Stone Edge. We're not going to mix them together. Only mix a portion of it. At first, we want it to be about 50-50. And with a small brush, let's go ahead and, tap the rocks in random areas. And as you can see, these rocks have been getting hit with a little bit of color throughout all the paint scheme. And that's going to give us some really nice range, diversity in our rocks. It's going to look really, they're already looking amazing, right? Once that is done, let's mix some more Stone Edge into the mixture. We want to create a lighter gray and start poking at the rocks. This is kind of like the highlight stage. So let's mostly target the high parts of these rocks. And if you want, you can add in a little bit more Stone Edge to the mix and do another round of highlights. It's going to look fantastic. Let's create a dark wash. To do this, we're going to add some black to our palette, a couple drops of this black paint, and then we're going to go ahead and add in some water. We're going to mix that together. And this wash, it's not for the entire piece. We want to drop it at random areas. And if you're going to add foliage, we will use this black wash as a base under the foliage, create that extra, saturated moisture underneath the foliage. It's going to look great. Okay, so let's go ahead and add this to some spots on the floor and around the pod. And that's going to give us, that moisture look, but also even a muddy and worn kind of look, right? And on the outside, imagine how the water might drain off the top of these pods, where it might, puddle or pool. And you'll be there, make your way. So go ahead and do this for all your pod houses and you're good to go. All right, here's a look of what we've done so far. And the results of your labor. These look great and they are ready for some game action. This next section is an optional enhancement. We're going to need some clear gel tacky glue and a few types of flock. We like to use Woodland Scenic's Earth Blend, Blended Turf, and Static Grass. Affiliate links in the description below. And here's some unusual flock that we got a long time ago. We don't even know what it's called, but this is optional anyways. So if you want something like this, you know, dig around, see what you can find. For tools, we're going to use dental type tools like this. Okay, drop in some glue and add the texture wherever you like. There's no wrong way about it, just have some fun. With the flocking, we'll do the same thing. We generally grab our glue and trace down the sides of a few random vines. It doesn't have to be, heavy glue. Just go lightly. Toss the variation of the flock colors onto the pod. When you're done, turn the pod upside down and give it a little tap so that the excess flock will just fall right off. If you work with one color at a time, it's a good way to recycle your excess flock for another time. Repeat this flocking method until you get it where you like it. On the other hand, you could put all the flock together and mix it all up. Then when you sprinkle it on the piece, it's done at one time. For this type of terrain, that's totally fine. Nice, colorful, stylized look, living, breathing, mud pod house with some eggs on top. Yeah, that's looking really, really good. Anyhow, that's going to bring us to the end of this video, and we hope you found this video helpful. And more importantly, we hope you've seen just how easy it is to do. And you know you can do this. This is nothing, right? Want to make sure you guys head over to our website, and here's why. We try to send out a newsletter each month, and we generally try to include a free download. We also talk about the file updates, and we also let you know about any crowdfunding projects, and even some lore about Mystic Realm that you might be able to use in your campaign. If you're a new subscriber to our YouTube page, welcome to the realm. We wish you good fortune in the adventures to come.